What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Vertical Football. Welcome back to another episode of the Manchester United Fans Corner. I'm your host, Shegun, and guys, it's great to be back here with you to discuss Manchester United. We had a very good game against Leeds. Very good game against Leeds. We won that game on penalties 5-4. End of full time was, normal time was 1-1. A lot of good things we saw in that game. A lot of things you're going to analyze further. A lot of things that we need to improve upon. Obviously, at this stage of United, in the stage that they've gotten to in the project, you expect that there's some things that they will not be getting perfectly. The automatism will not be there yet. And so constant practice makes perfection. And so guys, let's jump right into it. Let's analyze that game and see what are the things we learned, what are the things we have to do better. Guys, let's jump right to it. So the first point I think I want to start by saying is the fact that months ago, we had these debates, sometimes on live shows, sometimes in community groups, sometimes even, on the show, we've analyzed it, where there's a section of people that come out to say that United, especially after Sir Alex Ferguson, always does well when they don't have the ball. And people are like, since we don't do well when we have the ball, and we do well when we don't have the ball, then we should just resort to a counter-attack transitional kind of football. And I obviously was against that. Obviously, people that have been watching our content know that I was obviously against that. And I've always been of the opinion that when you look at, I think I did a content to that. People that have been watching us for a long time will know that I did a content a few months ago, where I said that when you look at teams that have dominated in football, at least for the past 15 years, you always find out that these guys are people that want to have the ball. They want to have the ball. They want to dictate their own destiny with the ball. And when they lose the ball, there are people that are so addicted to the ball that they want to counter press and press to recover the ball. And I remember I said that in that episode where I said that if United wants to, and maybe that's a reason why United have not been able to win as much trophies as we wanted after Sir Alex Ferguson, because we've always had the mindset of we are always good when we don't have the ball. But I remember I said it that for United to be the kind of side that dominates and, not that dominates a game, dominates the league for subsequent years, you have to be a team that wants to have the ball. You have to be a team that is addicted to with the ball. You want to be a team that when you lose the ball, you press and counter press to recover the ball back. You want the ball all the time. And when you do that, I believe when you look at the likes of Man Cities, the PSGs, the Barcelonas that have dominated and had that spell of dominance, that's what they do. And I think United has to be a team that wants the ball. So I remember I said that. And what I saw for the first half against Leeds and the dynamics I saw, this is what we want to have. This is what we want to have. And I believe that if United can get to a level where what we saw in the first half can be a base and they can improve upon it, and they can do what they did in the first half after improving upon it for 75% of their games, I believe United will be massive contenders for the league, massive contenders in the Champions League. If you can do that principle that was shown in the first half against Leeds, and you can obviously improve on it because there are parts of it that were not really standard, were not really up to par, right? But if you can improve upon it, that same base, good base, improve upon it and do that for 75% of your games every season. You are playing 60 matches every season, for example. You can do that consistently for 75%, regardless of who is on the pitch, whether you're starting 11 or your substitutes. And you can do that 75% of your games. You have a shot as being one of the top teams that will dominate in four tournaments in a season. And I believe that should be the aim. We have to play with the ball. We have to be dominant with the ball. And so, guys, let's go right into a lot of things that we saw, because we learned a lot of things. Some things we've seen before, some things we are beginning to notice as that is coming up. And so, guys, let's discuss it. So, first and foremost, let me start with the pressing structure. Obviously, we've been clamoring 4-2-4 pressing structure right from the second game of the preseason. Even the first game against Wrexham, we said 4-2-4 has been there. And I think in this game, it was a mixture of 4-2-4 at some point. It was a mixture of 4-3-3 also. I think the major difference is the position of Amad Diallo. I think Amad Diallo's position really determined a lot whether it was a 4-2-4 or a 4-3-3. And I think Amad Diallo was defensively aware of the movement of the wing back of Leeds. And whenever he decides to push back, it becomes a 4-3-3 instead of a 4-2-4. And so that was what we saw. And I felt that for most part, the pressing was really good. The pressing was really good for most parts. And they resulted, that Leeds United resulted, because of the pressure structure was so good, they resulted to going long many times. And I felt that in most of those situations, we dealt with those situations where when they went long. I really like the way the likes of Heaven and Yoru dealt with the striker in the first half. I'm trying to remember his name now. The striker in the first half, I really like the way they dealt with him in that first half in terms of pressing on him, that rest defense, don't allow him to have the ball as a target man to bring it down and link up, right? Even though I know that the first goal came from that situation where there was a long ball to the striker, even though the striker did not, the lead striker did not link it up well, but obviously you saw the goal, the movement of Fletcher, I think, one of the Fletcher brothers, made a mistake and it got into the hands of a Leeds player, and then but I apart from that moment, and maybe another moment where I saw that around the right hand side where he brought it down and allowed Leeds to play, the likes of Kamada, right? I think Kamada was able to play. No, not Kamada. This other guy, Tanaka was able to play in that situation. Apart from those two situations, for most of the first half, I felt we dealt with the threat of the target man situation of they trying to build up, they can't build up, they go long. Our defenders try to pin them to try and recover the ball very well. I like the marking in the first half, particularly because of the way we were, we marked and restricted the spaces. And I think we've said it many times that we believe with the way Michael Carrick is progressing, is going through the route of Johan Cruyff, right? You might not be a good defender when it's a large space, but if you can limit your defending to tight spaces, you can be the best defender. And I think I like the fact that a lot of those defending were done compactly in tight spaces and trying to press in those moments and recover the ball quickly. And that's the way to go. That's the way to go. So I really like those, that situation. So other things obviously is the rotations. I felt the rotations for the first half was more than the rotations we've seen in other preseason games, even though we've said it many times there are positional rotations, but in the first half, massive positional rotations, massive. Everybody was everywhere at every situation. And I understand that obviously that's how PSG plays. Everybody can be everywhere at every time. For example, you see Ahmad on the right, you see Ahmad in the center. Sometimes you see Ahmad even dropping back. Sometimes you see Zirkzee up front. You see Zirkzee in number 10. Sometimes you even see Zirkzee dropping back as first play receiver. So it was really, really good in those moments. You could see Fletcher sometimes being the pivot to circulate the ball. Sometimes you can see him moving in. I think there was a lot of good positional rotations that I really, really, really enjoyed. And I think we're going to be seeing more. Amas also, sometimes you see Ahmad inverting. Ariamas inverting into the center. Sometimes you see Ariamas out wide. I really like that. Sometimes you see Dogu out wide, you see him inside. Sometimes you see Dogu on the other side. I think it's really, really good. Sometimes you see Dogu in the zone 14. Good, was really, really good. And I think that's a sign to show. Obviously, they need to perfect that. Because we saw some of these situations where even with PSG, because when you look at PSG's positional rotations, you understand that you have to be very, very, very disciplined with the ball in those movements, because there's a possibility that if you lose the ball, or when you lose the ball, certain players might be out in certain zones, right? So, for example, if you lose the ball, for example, when Joshua Zirkzee is playing the first rate receiving job, for example, Joshua Zirkzee must be able to do this duty in that role, right? He must be able to do this duty in that role. So I think there are a lot of good things. I like the combination plays on the wings in terms of the two midfielders and then the running and fullback. A lot of good positional rotations, a lot of good dynamics. Obviously, as I said earlier, it's not going to be perfect at this moment because some players are still coming in, which we analyzed also the second half. And they need to still get to understand exactly what the manager wants from them. But obviously, there are good signs in terms of we being dominant on the ball. Control is the name of the game. And I think I really like what I saw in terms of the positional rotations. Also, I felt that also another thing about the positional rotations is obviously teams will most likely, and that's something that United obviously would change from. But also, in terms of teams defending against United, when we are doing these positional rotations, they will most likely go 1v1 against us, right? So they will go 1v1. I think we saw that against Leeds, where at certain points, Leeds was like, since they are rotating so much, let's just be one man versus man. Don't need to do zonal. Just man versus man. Follow anybody you can follow. And so we need to get better at it to be able to even, because a lot of Premier League sides are, likes of Arsenal, are doing very, very good when it comes to man 1v1, man versus man. A lot of teams are going one man versus one. And so we need to be very, very good as a team in terms of how we positionally rotate to disrupt even the best of the 1v1 man-to-man marking systems that a lot of teams in the Premier League are beginning to adopt and use. And I think that will be very, very interesting to see. Also, I think a lot of direct football into space. So it's not just about trying to tap the ball and move. Also, understanding, I think we saw that a lot. Even the goal came from that situation, playing into space and people moving in, Mbeumo moving in. Ahmad did a lot with Mbeumo in the game, played into space and moving, and it caused a lot of issues to teams. And I think that's another issue in terms of when we are playing teams that obviously we also want to keep a high line. You know, having a fast player like Mbeumo, having a fast player like Ahmad, having a fast player like even Cunha, Rashford, Bruno, who play into space to moving. So I think it was really, really good in terms of the possession style of things, but also the direct front foot playing into space kind of football. I think it was very, very good. The rest defense was good, as I said earlier, and I think I was very, very happy with the fact that Euro and Evan started this game against Leeds, because I don't know how Maguire would have survived in that island situation, having to push with the forward and limit his chances, and also knowing that this is a very good transitional side who has the ability to bomb through and operate in the spaces behind, which we saw in the second half, a lot of that kind of situation happening. So I think maybe Michael Carrick will just have to decide on the kind of games to use at Maguire. And some of games you do it at Maguire. For example, you do it at Maguire against a Leeds. You do it at Maguire against a Brentford, against a Bournemouth, against a Liverpool. If you want to be high, you don't want to use him like that, because it can be very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And I think I was happy with the centre back pairing. So the next point, I think is the 3-2-2-3 shape. I think I said that, and we saw that throughout the game. We saw the wingers moving in. You saw the fullback operating. Ariama's fantastic in pushing out. So you saw even the second half, even when the second half came on board, you saw the likes of Cunha and Bruno moving centrally, and I like that. Right? I like that, and I think that was very, 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 very good. Very, very good. I even though I know that at certain moments the winger, that Thompson was out wide trying to. I think we saw a lot of that dynamics 3-2-2 with Dogu, with all those guys, and I think it's very, very good. But obviously something we need to improve upon. It's something we need to see. Having the likes of Cunha and Bruno in the out spaces is very, very good. There are people that can operate in those spaces, those tight spaces, and I think it's something we want to see more and more. Okay, so next thing, I think the game was obviously of high intensity. I think throughout, and it's more intense than the PSG game. I think that was the kind of game where you can see what our dynamics and how does our dynamics work in a kind of Premier League intense level, right? At the intensity level of the Premier League. And I think we saw that against Leeds. And we saw that there are some mistakes we made. Obviously, in the mistakes we made, especially in the second half, when the likes of Bruno came on board, I felt that the name of the game had to be control. We had to find a balance. We had to find a balance in that second half where we had control of the game, but we were still as dangerous. I felt certain moments in the second half we went too long, a lot of long balls. And when you go long balls against a traditional side, you play too risky against them. You are giving them what they want to eat, what they want to enjoy. And I think we saw Leeds having those transitional moments back to back. And I think we have to stop that. We have to find a way. For example, I see situations where the likes of Bruno, the likes of Tielemans trying to switch play, and now switching play, and the switch of play doesn't now reach the desired man, and Leeds can transition. That's very dangerous. And I think those are the things that Michael Carrick needs to tell them. We need to know when to take those risks. You can't just keep taking risks. With the kind of football we want to play, we need to know which zones are we allowed to take risk. What kind of risks are we allowed to take against a traditional side like Leeds? I think would have been much more dangerous, really. much more dangerous. So I think we just need to ensure that we are very, very careful about how we take this. So I think more and more, what we wanted to see in the game was the defensive transition. That was my major. I wanted to see how we dealt with that. And I felt fairly, the tasks we were given, most parts we dealt with it decently. Most parts, some things we could have done better. For example, the goal, we could have, obviously the mistake from Fletcher, but even the one-man movements and how we took everyone off position, all those kind of things. I think, well, obviously we'll get better. We'll get better at what we are doing. But I think it's really, really nice. Now let me talk about certain individuals. I think Mbeumo obviously is ready for the Premier League. Mbeumo is ready for the Premier League. There's no doubt about that. He's ready for the Premier League. Mbeumo is always like that kind of player that when he comes back from holiday, he needs games and minutes to get into his shape. We saw that last summer when he came. But when the season starts, he's ready to go. We need a very good and informed Mbeumo this season. We need a very good and informed Ahmad. We need a very good and informed Zirkzee. Good and informed Bruno. We need all these guys informed because you're competing on all fronts. You need these guys very, very informed. Amas, as I said, fantastic, disciplined. I saw a lot of good things he did in terms of when to know when to invert, to create options and overloads in the right situations. Also, Amas knowing when to be outside. I think that was really, really, very, 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 very good. Fletcher, that's the Fletcher brother that played in the first half. If at all, I think there were two Fletchers that played in that game. So the one that majorly played in the midfield role in the first half, I think was very good. I think the number 39 reminds everyone of McTominay, even the way he passes the ball. You want to feel McTominay back to the team. I think it was very, very, very good. I think a lot of good things. Obviously, the mistake leading to the goal, but he's a young lad who will learn. But I think also when you look at, for example, his ability to be a very good player in terms of when we are trying to pin them back or when we are trying to play proactively to circulate the ball, very good circulatory, very good penetrative passes at a certain point online. Good. Obviously, we know it's not yet up to the level of the Premier League, but obviously I think he's a player that should remain in the squad. Remain in the squad to have some minutes throughout the season and develop. Ahmad, fantastic. Ahmad is always fantastic. There's nothing much to say about Ahmad. Ahmad is Ahmad. Ahmad plays fantastically. Defensively, attacking wise, he's there. Pressing, he wants to press. Ahmad wants to press. Ahmad wants to defend. And I think Ahmad wants to attack. And I think it's very, very, very good. Zirkzee obviously was very good. As I said earlier, positional rotations was very, very good. And we might, I don't want to be, because obviously I've said before that Zirkzee should leave the club. And the reason why I said Zirkzee should leave the club is because Zirkzee is the icing on the cake. I've always said this. And so to get the benefit of Joshua Zirkzee, we have to be a side that has the ball. Remember, I said that many times. We can't be this side that transition. It's not a bad player, but if this setup we are using previously has not been the one to help his game. But if United can become a side that have most of the ball and be able to do these positional rotations, the guy is silky. He can enjoy that kind of football. So if that is the assurance, I'm good and fine. So you can use him. But if we are still going to resort to this traditional kind of football, then I think we just let him go. So guys, these are what I want to say for this game. Fantastic game, good game. Another important step in the right direction. So one more Preason game against AC Milan, and then we can now start talking about All City and analyzing who starts and how we approach the game. So obviously, I believe against AC Milan, we'll see some other players that did not play, the likes of Rashford, the likes of Kobe, that did not play today. I think we'll see more of them. So guys, let me have your opinion on this analysis. What did I say that you agree with? What did I say that you disagree with? Let's have that discussion in the comment section. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Ultimately, don't forget to share. I remain my humble self, Shegun. Until I see you next time. Bye.